To go ahead and get started. Recording is started. There was an executive session held before this meeting to discuss pending litigation of personnel matters. It started at 6 and concluded prior to this. So at this time, we are calling the meeting to order at 7:30. Can you please rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item number 3 on our agenda is announcements. We have a few here. The first one I would like to say is the CFA. Can you give me the
CFA is the Commonwealth Financing Authority.
awarded $98,931 from the Greenways, Trails and Recreation Program to the town of McCandless for the park's master site development plan. You want to add anything to that?
No, an exciting tool that we can use to plan for the future for our recreational facilities that we currently have, along with any future recreational facilities, and also trails and walkability to those parks that we will have a plan that we can apply for other grants for too.
Wonderful, thank you. Another announcement I want to make, and hats off to our town manager, Mr. O'Malley. He was able to work with local university, LaRoche University here, and they worked together to establish a employee benefit that any employee who wishes to use the tuition discount can apply. And it's stated that LaRoche and the town of McCandless has had a long-standing partnership, and they have been found that very rewarding. Their hope that offering a 50% tuition discount for undergrad and grad programs to town employees helps to convey the appreciation for all the town employees to do, keeping our community safe, beautiful and thriving. So thank you very much to LaRoche. And again, thank you, Brian, for really, I know you said it took over a year to get this done. So hats off to you. That's a wonderful resource for our employees here. Thank you very much.
Does that extend to council as well?
I believe it's just employees. So until you get a big paycheck from here, Jack, I don't think. Are there any other announcements this evening? From anyone else on council?
Mr. O'Malley, we got a letter from, do you want to share that now or you want to wait?
We received a nice card here that was sent to the Heritage Center from the Cully family about the Shining Star banquet that took place in November. It was a wonderful event, and honoring their father meant so much to us, to them, and just wanted to thank the town, the FTPC, and the volunteers of the Heritage and Cultural Center for making that happen.
Great. Moving on the agenda is item number 4, public comment on agenda items only. So if there is anyone in the audience who would like to step forward, please state your name and address and any public comment on agenda items only. I see no public comment. So at this time, we'll move on to reports of committees. The report of Administration and Finance Committee.
Motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
30 minutes.
I skipped over that. Item 5. I need a motion to approve the minutes. Can somebody make that motion?
I will make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Wall. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Nick. Any discussion? Any changes? Pending no changes, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we can get on to reports of committees. Report of Administration and Finance, Mr. Casey.
Okay, Ms. Greathouse, would you please come up?
Good evening. We can start with the check listing. You all received it in your packets. Does anyone have any questions on December's check listing? Yes, ma'am.
It may have just been me, but it seemed like there was more than the usual uniform requests and reimbursements. Is that a typical of December?
Yes, ma'am. They're all using their final reimbursement. So we usually do have a larger amount in December. So we do monitor that and we do track it so that no one goes over.
Okay. No other questions, and I'd like to make a motion to approve check listing number 12 dated December 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2023, totaling $1,752,900.18 as submitted to each member of council and posted on the bulletin board and town website.
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Quillen?
We have to take a formal vote on that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The next item on the agenda is my preliminary report for December. As a few of you know, we do a couple renditions of December each year. We do this one as the preliminary. This is prior to the 30-day accrual, which is typical for governmental accounting. And then you will receive a final in February for December. Once we have established or began the auditing process. To give you an indication, we had about a $70,000 increase in expenses over the 30 days last year, and we had a considerable amount of revenue because we continued to receive from our third-party partners in collections throughout the month of January. So tonight's preliminary December report shows that we are at 104% of budget for revenues, and we are at 88% of budget for expenditures. I expect that expenditure number to climb slightly. I do anticipate some additional money in revenue. I will tell you that we exceeded our expectations in real estate transfer tax. We had a very good December. You may remember in July, we lowered that budget based on the interest rate increase. We had 3 large commercial properties close at the end of the year. And so we received a above average disbursement in December. We talk about that when we do the budget. I can quantify usually on averages for your residential, but when it comes to commercial, they happen haphazardly. And so we had 2 very large businesses close as well as a large parcel of land.
Did it return back to the second quarter budget or just?
It goes into 2023's.
I'm saying the increase that we saw in the fourth quarter. Okay,
No, the budget remains the same, so you'll see that additional amount over and above what we anticipated.
but did we match the number of the second quarter that we changed?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Yes. Yes, so the other items that you'll see is we had a larger than anticipated collection and business privilege tax for December. So we have met that budget as well. We're, like I said, at about 104% of budget at this time. That will fluctuate slightly with the audit, just because of end of year adjustments. I'm comfortable with the budget numbers. Does anyone have any other questions? I will tell you, again, in February, you will see a closer to final number.
Well done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Greathouse. Next is the communications report.
Communications report is in your packet. One note I would say is one of the favorite things we do is our printed calendar that was delivered at the end of December, early January, and always both well received from our residents, along with lots of calls beforehand asking when it's going to be.
By the way, if anybody was looking at the check listings and it showed a rather low amount of money for the expenses sent in the calendars, that's because the post office, we had a balance. So it's not as inexpensive to make that as distribution as you might think. Okay, junior councilman's report, Leonard.
Good evening, council. To start, student council has begun their preparations for the upcoming Morp Dance. The event is set to be held Saturday, February 3rd at 7:30 p.m. Unified Bocce, the North Allegheny Unified Bocce team held its first match against Shaler High School on Monday, January 8th. This is a great opportunity for all students of North Allegheny to get involved in a sport. This organization is inclusive as it includes both regular and special education students. The program has been run by Miss Melinda Beck of Nash and has been going strong since 2022. Traveling Art Gallery. Nash students who take part in who take French have the opportunity to travel to Hossack Elementary School and teach students about famous pieces of art by French artists. Miss Kylene Butler led the group of students. Strolling Strings. The North Allegheny Strolling Strings program traveled to Hossack Elementary for their winter concert and played with the elementary school students. And finally, I wanted to give an update on, I have selected my initiative as junior councilman for McCandless. I want my area of focus to be public safety, and I'm working with our assistant town manager and our police chief on coming up with a comprehensive plan to to be able to deliver on that. So, yeah, thank you.
Hey Carson,
Yes,
I have good news for you.
okay.
There are plans in Public Works to put in some bocce ball courts down in Ward 3, down at Wall Park.
That's awesome.
But I don't
That's
know
awesome.
if they've got mixed with that last council or
I think we've had some preliminary plans for that. I don't know if I
Yeah.
want to say we have plans for it, but we've.
We have
discussed some
plans, it might be
options with
preliminary.
Thoughts for some type of recreation down there that's more family oriented
Yeah.
or related to the pavilion rentals.
Okay,
So there's been some ideas we've kind of thrown around the staff.
okay,
about
yeah.
options down there.
In Ward 4. I just want to make sure.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Poor Jack takes all the credit there.
I thought it was Ward 3, not 4.
Just giving you a hard time, Jack.
Okay,
Well, thank you. Thank you.
we'll stay on
Thank
these
you.
guys about.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next, let's see. Turn it over to Doug Arlo.
Jack, yeah, the McCandless Industrial Development Authority, there was no meeting this month.
Okay. Next, Jason Singer.
North Hills Council of Governments, I attended my first meeting last week in person. The minutes are in your packet. If anyone has any questions, I'm more than willing to answer.
Okay, and finally, is there any public comment on Administration and Finance Committee items? If so, I'll turn it over to Mr. Arlo.
Okay, Planning and Zoning Committee, staff reports, RJ. You can enlighten us.
Good evening. You got a longer one for me this month. We had some pretty good discussions at the planning commission. Before I go into the written report, I just wanted to mention something that we finished up on this staff level and just rolled out today. So that I don't forget it after I launch into what's in the written report. We have put out a new permit submission guidelines document. As far as I know, it's the first unified guidance document that we've had, definitely at least since, I've been here. Where it kind of pulls together all of the things that you need to know when you're submitting a building or a zoning permit, all the documents you need, how to get, what to show on your survey, what counts as a survey, stormwater information, so people aren't finding out after they submit things, oh, by the way, you need to put a sump pit in because your garage is big enough that it triggers their stormwater management requirements. Construction spec drawings, not something that we had on our information sheets before. So it was a really nice team effort from the whole department. They all had a little bit of input into the frequently asked questions or what they wanted to communicate to people up front. I hope that people find it useful. It's on the building and planning file pages as well as our departmental page. So if you're really entertained by documents, feel free to take a read. I thought it was fun. But I understand that my definition of fun is sometimes a little different. So just wanted to let everybody know that that's out there, and hopefully that makes the submission process and the comfort level of residents as they come to work with our department a little bit better. We'll see how it goes. So unless anyone has any questions about that, I can roll into the planning commission report section. Okay. So since it was January, we do reorganization at the planning commission every year. Since we do technically have a couple terms that end every year. Dan Cordum was again elected as the planning commission chair. And since our vice chair actually stepped off the planning commission, he did not stand for another term. We elected a new vice chair, which is Ann Clark. She's been on the commission for a bit now. So that was the sort of housekeeping part of the meeting. We did speak with Schultz Ford, the Lincoln electric vehicle dealership again. Not too much movement on that. There's still some stormwater questions that we have. I think that it's clear now what we need to see from them, and they're working towards that, in tandem with, understanding what Gateway's asking. But they did not make it out of the planning commission this particular meeting. Same thing with Walnut Court Phase 2. There wasn't a new set of plans to review yet, but we're expecting to see them on February. Haven't received those revisions yet, but we should within the next day if they're going to make it to the February agenda. The longest discussion that we had, and I thought it was a really good one, was I think maybe one of the council members last month asked about what this rezoning application was coming through. We rate this person Eco Village. I think there was a pre-application meeting we had with them. So I won't go into too much detail since I kind of primed that. Of course, feel free to ask any questions if you have them, but we had a really good discussion with the planning commission. It sounds like the group that is pursuing this application has met with the residential neighborhood in the back, Knoll Street, that area. We know from the last rezoning application we had in that area that those residents will come out and let you know how they feel if they don't like it. So it sounds as if things are pretty amicable there. They've continued to meet with the neighbors to make sure they understand their plans. If the rezoning is approved and if they're successful with the land development application, it would be very low impact in terms of they're hardly taking down, they're at least their intent is to hardly take down any trees, not to really do any major grading, really to work with the site and the ecology there as it is. So we had a good presentation, lots of good questions asked by the planning commission, kind of getting an understanding for the look and feel of the concept plan, understanding that we don't do the true technical review until we get to the land development stage. This is really more, does it fit with this area of the town? And is it, does it mesh well with our comprehensive plan? So one of the highlights of that discussion was also the provincial leader for the Sisters of Divine Providence. She came out and, made sure it was clear that the sisters really support this application. They would, of course, be the ones that would have to sell the property for it to move forward. And so she had some passionate words about why she felt that this was a good way for them to steward the property in the future. So yeah, and of course it's up to town council's vote. And certainly if there's any concerns, we'll see what comes out of the public hearing. We're going to be mailing the notification letters for the abutting property owners tomorrow. And then that public hearing will be held at the February 26th, I want to say. Yes, 26th town council meeting. And then the last item on the written report is the Starbucks modification request to waive the sidewalk that was previously approved to be constructed as part of the land development plan they did when they were moving into 95 Blazer Drive with the non-conforming use change. Since we have somebody here to make that presentation, I'm not really going to go further into depth with that other than to note that the planning commission's recommendation was to deny the sidewalk waiver and to not pursue a fee in lieu, that they recommended that it still be required to be constructed. But they have representation here tonight. So unless anyone has any questions for me now, I'll kind of let that presentation speak for itself.
I wanted to ask you, where's that eco village at exactly?
Yeah, so it's
Right across from the hospital?
Yes. So it's part of the Sisters of Divine Providence property, but that like really heavily wooded area that's sort of on the eastern end of where they abut Cumberland Road. That part was subdivided off when they did the Mother House facility. They came through and did a land development application to build the new residential facility. And as part of that, they also subdivided off that large. I want to say maybe it's something like 16 acres. Don't quote me on that, but it's big. I'd have to double check it. But yeah, it's almost all woods as it's currently.
Mr. Casey, they actually have a nice website that you can learn more.
Oh,
about
nice.
their
Thank you.
plans. If you just look up the Rachel Carson Eco Village.
Okay,
There's a
thank
great
you.
website.
And that will come back to the planning commission. It's going for a public hearing. And then it has to go back to planning commission for.
Well, so not for the rezoning. They've
Yeah.
issued their recommendation for the rezoning, which is approval. But they would go back to the planning commission
For any development.
if a land development application is ultimately submitted.
Thank you.
Is there any relationship between them and the Rachel Carson Trail folks?
No, I mean, not to my knowledge anyway. From what it's been described, it's a group of people that want to form basically an intentional eco-conscious community. They all have to sign, like they own the units, but the property as a whole is held by this village community that facilitates everything.
Thank you.
Great summary, RJ. And Jason and I attended that meeting, and Jason did the handoff for me, and it was over a 3-hour meeting.
Yeah, it was a long
It
one.
was, I think we're really fortunate in this town to have the talent that we do on that board, and your involvement, Kelly's involvement. Certainly appreciated, and again, we're really fortunate to have the quality of people on that board, that their attention to detail and really talk things through.
Well, I will pass that along and say thank you. Yeah, we have we have a good team. I think we have a good
Yes.
mix of skills and a bunch of people that work together well. So it's been nice to see that come together. All right, any other questions?
Liaison reports, planning commission, that's me. I think we covered that, right? Zoning hearing board, Trish.
Yes, our next meeting will be Wednesday, January 24th, and you do have the most recently approved minutes were actually from August because there was no meeting through September, October, November. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you. Any public comments on the planning zoning committee? Information? I'll hand it to Nick, recreational committee.
FDPC, Mr. Hart.
Okay, the Finance Development Promotional Committee for the Heritage and Cultural Center meeting was held. It was a reorganization meeting mostly, but a lot of good progress on ideas for raising funds and the like. And there's a report in the packet.
Yeah.
Trish was there also.
I was there and I've had the opportunity to meet Mrs. Moore, who's the current executive director. And compliments to whoever welcomed her to the Heritage Center. She's fabulous. I'm sure.
It's a great board, actually. It's a whole great board.
It's,
Yeah.
they're really dedicated people.
Absolutely.
And I think, Brian, you asked about the libraries, no decisions have been made.
Activities Advisory Ad Hoc Committee, Ms. Clooney.
Thank you. We did
It's not
meet
made.
late last week. Minutes were not available yet. But to let you know, a couple of things we're working on is making sure the combined calendar of all the variety of between our recreation department, the police, EAC, and all the associated people and groups that we have in the town are all shared on one calendar. And the other thing that we will be working on is having an easy to use volunteer page on our website that includes information about getting clearances and things like that and having clearances so that people who volunteer can be directed to the right place, the right group in the town.
Any public comment on Recreation Committee items? Hearing none, I'll turn it over to Mr. O'Malley.
Town manager's report was sent to you today. It's also available here at your desk. If you have any questions, let me know. I also would just highlight one of the things in there is a pollution reduction project that we did over off of Longview near one of the MPSA treatment facilities. It is a stream bank restoration. It helped meet our requirements for pollution reduction into our creeks. Per requirements from the EPA and DEP. These are big projects that we've been tasked with the last few years from the DEP. And glad that we've been able to work with MPSA on this and accomplish some needed goals there.
Is this the pictures represent the type of things that we've talked about with regards to Pine Creek and whatnot?
Some of it, yes. A stream bank restoration essentially, fixes the slope off, which reduces the amount of sediment that runs into, particularly whenever the creeks start cutting into the hillside more. So this gives a better chance for the water to spread out and not bring as much sediment back into the waterways.
Thank you.
I do have a question for Kelly. What happens when all that wood rots? That's on the edge, holding the bank.
So with the PRP reports, with the PRP plans, so the way the design is implemented, it should allow the natural habitat to take over and help support the system and eventually recreate just a natural system within the wood, around the woods to support the banks and to continue to redirect the flow to the center.
So the town doesn't have any maintenance responsibilities.
So per DEP requirements, the town does have to have a maintenance plan just to check and make sure things are still operating. And then in the time before we do the final closeout with the contractor, we keep our eyes on it as well and make sure things are operating. as they're designed to, and there's no replacements or anything that are necessary within that early year. And then we do have a maintenance bond as well, if there's anything in, the next coming years that we would find. And then for the longevity of the project, it's just a project you would check on every once in a while to make sure things are flowing well, and the town does have access, and that's just part of the DEP's requirements.
What's the extent of that liability? 20 years, 30 years?
It's really for the life of the project, yeah, which is when, especially when we get projects completed on not town property. That's where we have an agreement in place that needs to get fully executed with MTSA, just to say that the town's going to keep their eyes on the stream bank restoration, and MTSA will continue to operate as they have been, but the town keeps their eyes on that.
Well, is there an expiration date?
For it's until, I guess we're told otherwise by the DEP.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I can stay up here as well. I know the next thing is the engineer's report. So if you have any other questions, our report from last month should be in your packet. I'm happy to answer any questions.
No questions, guys.
All right.
Good year for grants, but it's a new year.
I know, right? We'll keep going, right?
I should take a moment to thank Gateway for their technical assistance on the grant that we just received. They have both Kelly and some other staff that helped out to get the technical side of that, and also just making sure they were crossing our T's and dotting our I's when we apply.
Thank you, Ryan.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on, the town attorney's report.
My report was in the packet and we spoke about it in the executive session. If you have anything else, talk to me after the meeting.
Item number 9 on our agenda, old business. I do not believe we have anything outstanding. So we can move on to item number 10, new business. First item on here is talking about the personnel board. We had a public hearing about it last meeting. We need to take a formal vote on this.
I make a motion to adopt tentatively identified ordinance number 1547. An ordinance of the town council, of the town of McCandless, Allegheny County, Pennsylvania, amending Article 137 Personnel Board of the Town Code of Ordinances to alter meeting procedures and qualifications for employment as a police officer, and to establish specific requirements for hiring and promotion.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there a discussion? Mr. Corbin.
Yes, just real quick. There's one non-material change. I know we spoke in the back, but I want everybody in the audience to know that the second paragraph, or the paragraph after the bulleted list on page 5 under Rule 208, that starts out the final composite score and ends with calculation shall form a composite score. Those are 2 sentences. They will be removed from the final draft, so that under the bulleted list, it will start with the final composite score shall be added 10 points for reference preference. The reason being is that would be the 3rd time we have listed the scoring mechanism, and it's just repetitive. So we're just going to take that out and go straight into the veterans.
Thank you.
Is that understood by everyone? Okay. Then at this time, can I call for a vote? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is a motion for police vehicles. It was in your packet. Do you have anything to add to this? This is pretty cut and dry.
No, this is for 2 marked vehicles and 1 unmarked vehicle. That was budgeted for and planned for. We will sell the other 3 or do what we do with them if we need any other use for them.
I'll make a motion.
I want to read it out just so we can get the
Yes,
number
sir.
in the record.
Motion to approve the purchase of 3 vehicles for the police department at a cost of $130,951 from Shorkey Auto Group.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Clunin. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item up is a motion about a modification request regarding a sidewalk at Starbucks. I believe we have a representative here this evening, if you'd like to come up. And by all means. RJ, do you want to give any background real quick, just a brief rundown?
Sure, let me just
pull this up. So, this land development application for the Starbucks that recently got a temporary occupancy. At 95 Oakland Drive came through the planning commission and then town council, towards the end of 2022. It was a little bit of an unusual situation because this was prior to the zoning rewrite, so there were just some strange things going on with the zoning district down there where you could have had a drive-through if it was any other scenario, but they technically were a non-conforming use to go from a bank to a drive-through coffee shop. So they went to the zoning hearing board first to get approval for that non-conforming use change. They did receive that approval, but as part of the condition on that, the planning commission said, or excuse me, the zoning hearing board said, we want you to go through the land development process. So the planning commission gets a chance to look at the driveway. So town council gets the chance to look at the driveway. So it was a bit of a tight site. So we went through all that review. It was successful. Part of that was there was a sidewalk that was shown traveling basically from where there already is that ramp at McKnight Road, through sort of this end cap, vacant area, as you're coming onto Glacier. And then that was gonna wrap around and come into the Starbucks. There's an outdoor patio, although the store is all drive-through. I mean, you could like do an over order, run in and get it and leave, but for the most part, it's drive-through traffic. But they do have for people that are on foot or on bike or whatever, they have a bit of cafe area. And so the sidewalk was gonna cut through the site, across the drive-through lane, and dump you out at that outdoor seating area. Starbucks has since come back and had a few different concerns, one of them being crossing through that drive-through area, the other being, as it turns out, that sort of vacant and grassy area between the Blaze Drive and McKnight intersection and the actual parking lot is a separate parcel. Their lease line with the person who owns, that whole complex ends at that property line. And so, at the time we were looking at it as sort of like a whole site submission, but now we know that's not really property that's under their control. So a few different things have been discussed, removing the alignment to the right of way. They've asked for a fee in lieu consideration with a total waiver. We had that discussion with the planning commission, as I mentioned earlier in my report. Their preference was still to see Starbucks construct it, just with a different pathway. But Starbucks is here to make their presentation and their request to you all. And so unless anyone has any questions for me at this point, did I get everything?
Yeah,
You did, RJ.
Thank you, RJ.
Okay.
My name's Bill Moldovan. I'm with Kimley Horn. I was here representing Starbucks in the latter half of 2022, both the zoning hearing board meeting and a land development plan. And I've got some slides here tonight to show the different iterations of design and things that we've been discussing with the township. And to be clear, this approach is what we're considering the first step in the process. We understand, as RJ said, that there are provisions in the ordinance that require the sidewalk. When we established the fact that a good portion of the sidewalk was proposed outside the lease line, we reached out to RJ and the town to determine what the next steps were. And we decided that there were really a few different steps. One was to request the waiver from planning commission and town council per the ordinance. And we do believe that there is one provision that suits us or fits this particular parcel. And if after this first step, we determined that the waiver request is denied, we have looked at alternative designs of the sidewalk that stay within the Blazer Drive right of way. And we've already submitted that to the town. It's been reviewed by Kelly and Gateway. We've received comments, and we received comments last Friday, and just today submitted an opinion of probable cost to be reviewed by Gateway to understand what the the extent of a fee in lieu would look like. And so I'm going to go through, if you would allow me to, just some dates, where we're at with the project, and then kind of the iterations of design, show you the lease line, and then just talk a little bit about why we believe we fit into that request for the waiver and fee in lieu. Good, RJ. So just relevant dates, December 22, we received land development approval. Construction occurred this year, spring to fall. We signed a letter of intent, Starbucks did, in November of 2023, to allow for a temporary occupancy permit to be issued. That issuance was on November 30th, 2023. As RJ mentioned, we came to Planning Commission earlier this month. They denied our request, and our temporary occupancy permit expiration is June 30th, 2024. So the first iteration of design, you can see that we have a sidewalk connection from our development, the crosswalk that goes through the drive-through lane and extends eastward towards the intersection of Blazer Drive and McKnight Road. The next slide has an aerial image on it to give you a little bit better context, but it also has a red line that describes or delineates that lease line. The lease line encumbers essentially the building, drive aisles, parking lot, and this lease area is approximately 0.64 acres of a larger 3.3 acre parcel that extends east and west for a good distance, and has a lot of the stream, Pine Creek, in that property boundary. We did present an option to remove the sidewalk in its entirety. So that is this particular plan. We've removed the sidewalk extension. We've removed the crosswalk going through the drive-through lane. We've removed any type of connection to the outdoor seating area. And I will mention that our initial approved plan, because there's no receiving curb ramp at the corner of Blazer Drive and McKnight Road, we requested that we stop that sidewalk short of the state road right of way. And that was approved by council in 2022. So part of the reason for that was because we felt like it wasn't necessary, or it wasn't appropriate to take that that sidewalk into a road right of way without the receiving pedestrian infrastructure. And that premise is essentially why we're here tonight. There is a section of the ordinance that says that the town council may waive the installation of sections of sidewalk when adjoining sections of the road do not have sidewalks. And if the town council and the town feels that it would be better to install that sidewalk infrastructure when the adjacent lands are developed. So, for instance, if there was improvements within the state road right of way and that pedestrian infrastructure was upgraded, perhaps it would be better suited to extend the sidewalk at that time. I also have some images and locations of the nearest sidewalks. RJ, if you could just, go past to the right here. So this is the site in red, and you can see across the McKnight Road from Blazer Drive, there is sidewalk infrastructure in a new, Park and Ride that was constructed. There is new sidewalk there. It's approximately 0.34 miles away. And that same ordinance says that an explanation would have to be given if to the town council, if the nearest sidewalk infrastructure is more than a third of a mile away. So I'm not making the argument that we are more than a third. We're essentially a third of a mile away from the nearest sidewalk infrastructure. So, and then the next slide has a few images that show the top left is looking from the Starbucks side of Blazer Drive across McKnight Road to the infrastructure that exists on the opposite side of the road. The top right shows what that infrastructure looks like. It's a footpath. There's no curb ramp. There's no sidewalk. It's a gravel strip that is being used. We're not making the argument that it's not being used. I think part of the discussion back in 2022 was that it would be nice to have this sidewalk connection because it was communicated to us that there are pedestrians making this traveling this pathway. But per the ordinance, we believe that it would be better suited to construct the sidewalk on the property that we lease and the adjacent parcel. I'm going to go to the actual proposed sidewalk connection that actually works. If we go back, this particular slide, it does show a sidewalk from the intersection of Blazer and McKnight traveling. It's a 5-foot sidewalk. We'd have a curb ramp, and it would follow the back of curb across the first entrance drive, if you will, to the old bank. Right now, it's a bailout lane for the drive-through, as well as delineators that keep traffic from entering in that particular location. We'd have a sidewalk across to another curb ramp, and we have a sidewalk proposed in the the grass strip to the westerly entrance into the site. So we're looking at about 300 linear feet of sidewalk, 3 curb ramps, pavement markings. We've done a preliminary opinion of probable cost, submitted that to the town and the town engineer. It's approximately $45,000 to install that sidewalk. We're here tonight to essentially discuss that with you, to see if you'd be favorable to accept the fee in lieu of $45,000, or if it's something else that allows the town of McCandless to reallocate those funds elsewhere in the community, and say build a sidewalk, a missing piece elsewhere, and wait for the development across the street to have receiving infrastructure for the sidewalk at this location. We're not making the argument that it's infeasible. As you can see, we've come up with a plan that we think works. It will require Starbucks to have some discussions with the property owner, because it still is off property. They'll have to reassess agreements and understand who's going to construct that sidewalk. But we're certainly showing a feasible sidewalk connection. This is just part of the process, and it would be the desire of the applicant to pay that fee in lieu in lieu of building the sidewalk. So I'm here to answer any questions. Sue Federico from Starbucks is listening on the Zoom call. I'm not sure if she's able to speak or not, but
We offered to unmute her, so.
Yeah.
okay. So we're here to answer your call or your questions. Like I said, this is just part of the process that we identified as the first step.
Sure. Just to keep this a little organized, let's just go in a specific order, so we're not all just random shooting out here. Let's start down here at this end of the table. Mr. Arler, do you have any questions for the gentleman this evening?
I don't have any questions. I'm kind of in favor of making something work because of what's transpired down there recently. That, we'd like to have, it mitigated, and a sidewalk put in, and I'm not really in favor of the, taking a fee in lieu of that.
Mr. Mordovan?
Moldovan.
Moldovan. Mr.
Yes, sir.
Moldovan. What's changed since we had a discussion back on December 22nd of 23?
Just
Or
the
22?
just the identification of a lease line. I think we stated it in our application for this waiver request. It was a mistake that we made in terms of not understanding what that lease line looked like.
Who's the leaseholder?
Pine Creek Development LLC, subsidiary of First City Company.
Has anybody approached them and had any conversation about the sidewalk?
Absolutely.
What was their response?
That there was no easement able to be granted for the sidewalk in its current location. That it would have to be off property and within the road right of way. So they're aware of our concern, Starbucks concern. And like I said, there will need to be some additional negotiating to understand, who maintains the sidewalk, whether or not it's part of Starbucks responsibility or the property owner, because per state law, it's the owner of the property that abuts that road frontage.
I guess the last question is, I see those white lines going across McKnight Road. Wouldn't that be considered a crosswalk?
It's certainly a crosswalk, and it has.
I don't understand your comment about this not connecting into whatever your terminology was, a crosswalk. Right, lack of words.
Considered it pedestrian infrastructure. There are no curb ramps, and there's no curb ramps on our side of Blazer or of McKnight Road, and there is a crosswalk, and there's no curb ramps or sidewalk on the opposite side. So I don't know the history of when the state road was reconstructed to include this infrastructure, but at that time there were no receiving curb ramps built.
If you take a look, we have a sidewalk here, and if you were to walk the sidewalk and you walk it all the way around, it takes you to within a third of a mile of your place, and that's a missing link. And we're trying to fill in these missing links. Once that missing link is finished, then we connect to Vestal Field. That takes you down to Wall Park, the very south end of our town. Or you can go through Vestal Field and come out through Oak Ridge, go up to the top across from the fire hall, and you can walk up to Rachel Carson, which is a 45-mile trail. So it's not like your piece isn't important. It's exceedingly important. And there's no way the town can build stuff at the same rates that you can. So I'm sorry. I really can't support your request.
I completely understand. I think I believe you were here, during
sir.
And you were adamant about that sidewalk being installed. So I completely understand.
Thank you.
Mr. Giorgetti.
I have no questions.
Myself, I appreciate all the presentation this evening. I'm in favor of the design you proposed. However, I don't think the town wants to be in the business of building sidewalks. So I'm against the fee in lieu of, but would appreciate this design from Starbucks. I do want to make a point. We're focused so much on connectivity on this side of this development, and I would consider part of Starbucks to be part of the overall Pine Creek development with Target and Giant Eagle. Directly on the other side of this development, we do have sidewalks that come off Walgreens and the oil change right directly into Target, which is likely less than a third of a mile away, connection that way. So I think it is an important part of our connectivity part of this, not necessarily for the part across, but even from within this own development itself. Again, I'm all for the design, would love to see this come back in. I can get behind this, but again, I don't think the town government's in the business of building sidewalks. So I would be against the fee in lieu of. Mr. Wall?
I'm still mystified because I sat in a lot of these public meetings. I'm still mystified how you could design a building or redesign a building and not know where the lease lines are. That to me is, it's almost hard to imagine. That being said, and that's not our concern here tonight, but we need the sidewalk. It's part of our overall plan. It's part of our trail system. And you know, we've had incidents here as recently as what, October, November?
The gentleman,
Yes.
lost a life at that corner.
At that corner. So this sidewalk is essential to what we want to do. For that reason, and I mean, I support you guys and we're glad to have you in the town of McCandless. But I can't support you here. It's not our sidewalk to build. You agreed to it throughout this process. It's not our fault that you didn't know where the lease lines were. That seems to me to be the biggest issue.
Yeah, and I will say that part of the reason that that Starbucks is concerned about taking that sidewalk to that intersection is because of the lack of infrastructure outside of what they can provide, you know, as part of their development. And
More specific about that?
I'd answer that. Can I get a little bit more color on what happened to someone
We had a person that was killed at the crosswalk.
in the Blazer Drive or in McKnight Road?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that we're looking at this as a scenario where we're directing individuals on a sidewalk to a location that doesn't have receiving sidewalks or receiving infrastructure. So we are taking pedestrians, although we're bridging the gap and making the pedestrian infrastructure, the connectivity greater. But we are also, placing people in a PennDOT right of way that doesn't have infrastructure on the other side.
I'm not going to argue with you.
Yeah.
However, I will tell you that this is part and parcel to what you guys agreed to provide.
And I'm not arguing that at all. This was the first step in a process. We wanted to ask if the town council would be in favor of a fee in lieu. And we're here tonight to understand your feelings and your thoughts. So we respect those.
So I'm with Mr. Singer. I don't think that the town wants to get into the business of building sidewalks.
I don't have any questions, Bill. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Cole.
Thank you. I do just want to remind everyone of the comprehensive plan. And a big part of our comprehensive plan in 2019 was connectivity. And I'm looking at the Google overhead now and seeing these crosswalk lines. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe there's press buttons for walk signals at that intersection. I need to confirm that. But I'm pretty sure there are. So when you say there's not the connectivity, I don't take that to be true.
I think you mean to the other side of the road.
Yeah.
I just mean crosswalk, or I'm sorry, curb ramps on the opposite
There's
side.
not a
There's
receiving
no place on the
sidewalk.
other side.
I understand that.
We're just
But-
not done.
Right, but also I want to remind you that there are residents in the Hickory Hills Apartments that do walk to Giant Eagle on a regular basis. There are many people that use that as a pedestrian pathway. So I am concerned for their safety and for the continued safety and connecting them and people to North Park and to the other recreation opportunities in the town. So that's a priority of mine. Now I look at this Pine Creek Properties and I would hope that Starbucks would have the resource to negotiate a deal with them to rent the space. It's 0.12 of an acre. They are paying $10.28 in tax total right now. So to me, if I own that land, if someone gave me $100, I would take it. They're at a pure profit. And I think that Starbucks can negotiate with them, rent that property because it can't be built on with that small space and make the sidewalk.
Makes their property more valuable.
Can I understand that. Can I at least get a feeling, we do intend to modify our approved plan through what we've discussed as kind of an administrative review to place the sidewalk in the road right of way as we showed tonight. I just want to be clear that that is our intent. If it sounds like the fee in lieu is going to be denied, just like it was by the planning commission. But that is our intent, to work with the town of McCandless engineer, RJ, and build a sidewalk as shown on this plan in front of you tonight.
I would say, and I think I alluded to it, I think there's a flavor of what's presented on the screen to be built, yes. So.
Thank you. I mean, that's why we're here tonight, to have this conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all want Starbucks here, but we all want to be able to get there, whatever mode it takes to get there.
I've already used it.
As well, so thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I think at this time, it sounds pretty much a thing that we're looking for a motion to deny. So
I'll
if
make
somebody
that
can make
motion.
that motion and read that off of here just for the correctness.
I'd like to make a motion to deny the modification request submitted by Starbucks at 95 Blazer Drive to waive the construction of a sidewalk along Blazer Drive as required by the land development application previously approved on December 19th, 2022, and allow a fee in lieu payment as calculated by the town engineer.
Second.
All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion is denied.
Thank
For
you.
your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, is there any
Thank you.
public non-agenda comments? Bearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.